Oh, this is gonna be crazy. That was great. Alright, hello everyone, and welcome today to another episode of SpraynPray1000's Verdict. I am SpraynPray1000, and today I'm going to be talking about Assassin's Creed Rogue, one of the latest games in the Assassin's Creed franchise. This one being released on Xbox 360 and PS3, and as of next year, it will be released on PC as well. So Assassin's Creed Rogue is a bit different from all the other Assassin's Creeds. First things first, this game only has a single-player campaign. There is no multiplayer component to Assassin's Creed Rogue. Second off, Assassin's Creed Rogue stars an assassin who then later betrays his creed and turns Templar. Now, if you follow the story, basically it's the equivalent of a betrayal story. He switches sides. And in that regard, it's unique amongst the Assassin's Creed games for having a main character who does something like that. So this is a very interesting game that we have here. So the first thing I will start off this review with is that Assassin's Creed Rogue is basically extremely similar to Black Flag. You'll recognize a lot of the same mechanics that were in Black Flag. It's running basically the same engine, the same setup and everything as Black Flag, which is alright, because Black Flag had a very good engine, has a very good setup, and in my opinion was probably one of, if not the best Assassin's Creed game they've ever made. So, in and of itself, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I think it's good that they took a lot of the lessons that they learned from Black Flag and put it in this game. Secondly, this game has a lot of stuff from the Ezio trilogy, namely Revelations, put in it, stuff that was taken out. Whether it be, simple mechanics like the slide hooks that allow you to maneuver across areas, or whether it be the stalkers or the return of area conquest, where you can capture areas and make income off of them and make revenue that way. The mechanic returns, and it's pretty interesting, and it's good to see that they took some of the lessons that they learned from other Assassin's Creed games and put them into this one. So right off the bat, there's a lot of good stuff happening in Rogue, and I really like that a lot. I think first off I'll talk about the story. The story of Rogue is you play as Shay Patrick Cormac, a starter assassin who is basically working his way up the ranks of the Creed. He is one of the students of Achilles, another major character in the Assassin's Creed line of games. And he is basically in this 18th century during the French and Indian Wars in American history. And he is fighting his way alongside the assassins, and eventually something happens during his time with the assassins that basically makes him lose all faith in their ideologies and beliefs, and he decides to turn Templar and joins the Templars instead. And essentially from there on, the game changes from your typical Assassin's Creed game into you're a Templar, now you're working against the assassins, and you have to basically do things along those lines. So a lot of your missions are going to be screwing up the assassins' plans and interfering with them. Now, in the real world, as you know, all these Assassin's Creed games have the Animus recreation of what happened, and the real world, which is more of a side aspect of the game. The main meat of the game is very much the assassin storyline in the past, in the 17th century or whatever time period you're in. In the real world, you play again as the unnamed Abstergo Entertainment employee as he helps a man called Otso Berg delve into Shay's memories and discover why he is exactly potentially the most important person in the entire Assassin's Creed universe, in Otso's words, not mine. And you work alongside him and a couple other people to discover this. A couple characters from from Assassin's Creed 4 do return, both in the Animus storyline and the real world storyline. And it's pretty refreshing to see that this game is literally a continuation of the Assassin's Creed 4 storyline. I did like that a lot, and I do like what they were trying to go for with that. But for the most part, the real world segment remains unchanged from what it was in Assassin's Creed 4. The hacking minigame is different. Instead of trying to create an infinite loop, you instead are trying to line up beams by reflecting them off of reflectors, and trying to power this core. It's a more simplified, easier to handle version of the minigame you would do in Assassin's Creed 4. The collectibles, the sticky notes return in Assassin's Creed Unity. I mean, in Rogue, excuse me. And other than that, the main premise remains. As you play through the game, you unlock higher security codes in the real world, which you can then use to enter doors to get more backstory from hacking computers and doing a whole bunch of stuff. And for the most part, it has not changed at all. Now, in the Assassins, in Shay's storyline, when you hop into the Animus and you begin to play, the Hidden Blade remains. The sword, the dual swords from Assassin's Creed 4 have been replaced with sword and dagger, which basically handle exactly the same. Your commands during combat are basically the same as well. You have your attack, you have your counter, and then you can do all the different moves during countering, like hurting someone, killing them outright, using your tools. The layout is essentially the same. You go to every area, you scan viewpoints by hopping up to them and synchronizing. You collect collectibles, you open chests. So basically, the major meat has stayed unchanged. As I said earlier, this game is basically building off of Black Flag and copying a lot of it, basically piece by piece. Now, as I said before, the return of the economy really does change up things. So, for example, throughout the game and after a certain point in the game, you are able to collect resources. You're able to collect stuff like metal and stone and wood to upgrade either your ship. That's right, the sailing actually returns from Black Flag. That also plays a major part in this game, the naval combat. You have a ship similar to the Jackdaw from Assassin's Creed 4. It's the Morrigan in this one. You can use your resources to upgrade your ship, upgrade buildings, which upon doing so, that increases your income that you get every 15 or 20 minutes. Very similar to what they did in the Ezio trilogy. The Ezio trilogy, you would upgrade various shops around Rome or Italy or Constantinople, wherever you were, to increase your income and therefore give you more money every so often to buy items and other stuff with. And to be honest, while it is a cool returning feature, really it serves no purpose after a certain point. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, you acquire resources either by opening chests, by picking up loot scattered throughout the world, or the fastest and most efficient way is one of two or three things. You can loot ships by plundering them. The looting mechanic and the boarding and all the other stuff remains intact from Assassin's Creed 4. They have a new addition called reverse boarding, where people can board your ship and you have to play a more defensive role as opposed to you just crippling a ship and then hopping on and boarding it. They have changed, you can also do, what is it called? I forget, excuse me. You can do outposts, settlements. Basically, in an outpost, you have to steal keys from these guards. You can kill them or pickpocket them, use them to open up warehouses to steal loot. It's very similar to the ones from AC4. You also have settlements, which you can capture, which will then give you a reward. And obviously, all this adds to your 100% rating. Everything adds to your mastery of the game. And there's a couple. That's basically how you get resources really quickly. Also, it's also worth mentioning that the naval campaign, which is very similar to the assassin dispatch missions from the Ezio trilogy, and the Kenway's fleet from AC4 returns in this game, except obviously you're helping the Templars again. So, like usual, you collect ships, and you try to basically conquer the world. It's kind of like Risk a little bit. You clear out areas, you send ships to them to complete missions, and you can slowly do that. One minor complaint about that is that it does take a long time for these ships to actually go do their missions. It takes something like an hour for every new area, which could be good or bad depending depending on what you're doing. Also, they did change a few things about the ship combat, the naval combat. First thing that they did change, besides the reverse boarding, is that your guns from before, your swivel guns, have been replaced with puckle guns, which you can free fire as you see fit. You don't have to hold them to target weak points anymore. They changed that Now all you do is you hold right bumper or R2, I guess it is, on PS3 to liberally hose down anyone. Hose down weak points. You can hold it to aim in, or you could free fire it yourself. Also, they changed the burning barrels you could deploy from the back of your ship to to burning oil, which will then stay afloat on the sea. And actually, if anyone runs into it, they take heavy damage. You can also perform a charge maneuver with your ram now for your ship. And just generally a couple of things here or there that you might notice if you played Assassin's Creed 4 and then you play this game, and that's pretty cool. Now, soundtrack and music, again, it's good. They always satisfy me in that regard for Assassin's Creed. But I'm gonna get into what I unfortunately did not like about Assassin's Creed Rogue. And while it's not too game crippling, it does kind of really hurt the game. One, I think that the game is very, very short. The game itself is only about 7 sequences if you count the final sequence, which is really more cutscene than anything else. That definitely kind of detracts from the game, is the fact that its length is actually pretty short. If you want to rush through the story, you could have the story finished in probably 10 hours, if that's all you're doing. I wouldn't recommend it, but the story is not too long. Second of all, money in this game, while it is a major factor, really doesn't go to anything, I feel. And money, after a certain point, I've had the most money I've ever had in any Assassin's Creed game in this game. By the end of the game, I had broken £1 million easily, without even doing too much. Besides completing the game and whatnot, money doesn't do much. All the stuff that you can buy or need to buy is incredibly cheap. And money becomes superfluous, and to the point that it doesn't really mean much. Now, you can take that however you want. Money might be scarce at first, and then by the end of the game, who cares how much you have? It doesn't mean anything, and that's kind of my issue with it. Maybe, that there wasn't really too much to buy. It's more about the resources, and you'll take that how you want. The other thing that they do in this game is that the game lacks polish. And I see this a lot with games now, and it really breaks my heart when they have a really, really good game, really well thought out. They really are going for something different with the game maybe, and the game lacks polish. So there's a lot of silly glitches in this game. You can get stuck inside of rocks. You can get stuck between your boat and the dock. People are disappearing out of cutscenes. None of these are frequent. I'm just giving an example of some of the various things I encountered. But in addition to the typical things like, he was supposed to grab this ledge and he didn't, and he jumped off and he might have died, or this thing is in a really weird position, or maybe this person is like sinking into the ground and popping up, just kind of weird, awkward stuff that you'll notice while playing this game. Always present in every Assassin's Creed. But in this one, it's there. It's definitely a constant reminder that this game lacks polish, which is the problem. This game, you can tell, was kind of thrown overboard in lieu of Assassin's Creed Unity. They kind of really gave this game the shaft, I feel, in lieu of Unity, which really sucks. A lot of the problems with this game could be easily rectified if they took a little bit to really patch it out and really hammer out all the problems. But regretfully, that will not be the case. So there's a lot of little hiccups here and there. A lot of returning problems, a couple new ones. Typically the returning problems are along the lines of, this guy was attacking you and there was no counter icon, so when you push the button, nothing happened. I remember one time I was being reverse boarded, and I ran over to the enemy ship, and you can just freely assassinate them. They don't do anything to stop you. And one guy was frozen in place trying to throw a grappling hook. Really, really kind of silly stuff. And I wish that sometimes they would add back a couple of other things that were in the Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy, the Ezio trilogy, like the parachute, throwing knives. You can have throwing knives in this game, but you can only hold one, and that really doesn't help too much. What I do like is the air rifle. The air rifle is basically the replacement for the blow dart gun. Pretty helpful, pretty neat. I do like that a little bit. Trying to think of what else. And they added back grenades to some capacity. Really, they're just bigger, more area of effect versions of your darts. You know, nothing too major there. You need them for some puzzles and whatnot. But all in all, this game is it's well rounded. It's not horrible. It's not spectacular. It's not amazing. It's good. It's just a flat out good, clean game. You know, it has its problems. It has its hiccups. I'm not denying that. But if you like Assassin's Creed, and especially if you liked AC4, you will probably really fit right in with this game. You know, you're gonna like this game a lot. You're gonna enjoy it. So, what would I give Assassin's Creed Rogue? Well, I would have given it a lot more. You know, I would have put it close to, but not exactly at the same degree as Assassin's Creed 4. Because it lacks the polish and it lacks a couple of features and has a few annoyances here or there, like animals not spawning when you need to hunt them and such like that. You know, really silly stuff here or there. But I will give this game a good rating because I do feel that it is a good game at heart. So I'm going to give Assassin's Creed Rogue an 89 out of 100 because it's still good, even with the problems it has. Even it's short, clean fun. Now, what I will say about it is even though it's an 89 out of 100, would I necessarily say go spend 60 on it? That might be a little bit too high of a price for a game that really doesn't have any multiplayer, and the single player is pretty short, and it's not really polished. Especially, you know, I wouldn't recommend saying that this is a $60 game. I mean, if you can find it for 50, for 40, then go get it, you know, that's no problem. You know, anything lower than 40 is a definite, you know, that's pretty good, I feel. And really, the meat of this game comes from trying to completionist, you know, complete it fully, being a completionist, doing a lot of stuff in it. So definitely, that's where you're going to get a lot of your money from. But yeah, an 89 is not bad by any mean. You know, an 89 is pretty good. And obviously recommend it if you're an Assassin's Creed fan. If you're looking for an action-adventure game, I would... Well, I mean, it's kind of silly of me to recommend that you jump in on this late, you know, this late of an entry, but I would definitely recommend it if you want to jump in and you want to have an action-adventure game set in the 18th century. You know, it's a pretty interesting setting like usual, and I do like Assassin's Creed Rogue because of that. And I was not too badly I was pretty hyped for this game. I did enjoy it. I wasn't disappointed. I mean, it wasn't a perfect and above and beyond my expectations, but I was still very much satisfied with the interesting cast of characters and such, and the usual Assassin's Creed feel. So 89 out of 100. Ubisoft, you know, you did a pretty alright job with this one, pretty good. And I will see you guys next time for the next verdict. Which who knows what that will be. So, thank you guys, have a good day, and I will see you later.